Hey everybody, so I recently got featured for my 3D work on Behance, so I thought that it would be a really cool idea to kind of make a breakthrough of it. In here I have a lot of interesting stuff, so at first glance a simple but a pretty complex form, so making those kind of tunnels in the letters was pretty hard, especially if you include that the letters are kind of made piece by piece. That makes everything a little bit more complicated. Also, I thought that it would be pretty cool to talk about the ball animation. I spent a lot of time figuring out how to make it the best way possible. And overall, yeah, we will talk about the materials also because it's a pretty interesting piece. I had displacement, and in order to have a good displacement, I had to have a good mesh, and obviously I had to remesh all of it and make it sub-D ready. And this was a big task because this is a pretty complicated form for remeshing. But without saying anything else, let's begin. So I'm going to show you the whole project on the example of the letter ampersand. Let's begin with the overall form and let's talk about how I made this sub-D ready mesh. As you see, it's a pretty good, pretty dense, basically ready for subdivision mesh. So I think it would be even better if I showed you on a real-life example. I'm going to create a letter. Let's go with ampersand, and let's place it in the middle. Make it bold. You're gonna have to create a spline, and this spline is going to go from the start to the end, or whatever you want. So you can make any trail that you want. I'm just going to show you on this example. So something like this should be okay. I'm going to put this spline inside of a sweep, and here we're going to choose a profile. It's going to be a rectangle. I'm going to make it smaller, and let's take it a little bit out of the letter. Make the rectangle a little bit taller, and also turn on the rounding and make it bigger. So we're going to have to make it maximum amount. And just place it inside of the sweep. Don't forget that we have those ugly intersections, and to get rid of those, we're just going to put the sweep inside of volume builder. We're going to make it smaller, so 0.6 is going to be not enough. Let's make it even smaller. I'm going to place this inside of volume mesher, and before that, don't forget to set this to uniform and make this something big. And inside of volume builder, place an SDF smooth to smoothen out those intersections. So we can set it to 1, the voxel distance. It's all dependent to the voxel size. And just place the text inside of a bowl. And inside of bowl, make it subtract. And we already have the trail. You can, adjust the width of the rectangle, so make it 6 to make it bigger, and then make the radius bigger, so something that makes it completely round. So we made a half of this already done. Also, if you need to make the holes, you can just, let's turn off the volume builder for now and turn off the boolean. If you need the holes, just create a cylinder. And you're gonna have to, we have the width, and this is gonna be the diameter of the cylinder. We only have radius, so just set it to half of the diameter, and this is gonna be enough. And just place it roughly. We don't have to place it perfectly, just place it roughly where we need it to be. And also make the rotation segments something big. Don't forget to do that on the other side. And place this inside of the volume builder. Don't forget to place the SDF smooth on the top, and you can turn everything on now. So now we have those holes, and it looks pretty cool already. So we have to kind of split it to separate parts now, and this is pretty easy also. We're gonna place this boolean inside of a Voronoi fracture, and in order to control those fractures, we're gonna have to create a matrix. All it does basically is just distributes the points. So if we set this to linear and make it go from the bottom to the top, you can just place it somewhere like here roughly. It doesn't have to be perfect. And just set this to endpoint and control the amount of points. So we don't really need a lot. Something like 5 I think is going to be enough. And in the sources, you can just delete the point generator and place here the matrix. This is going to create custom points, and you can set this to 6, for example, and move it higher if you need. And another thing to keep in mind is we want to avoid stuff like this, because this is going to make the job like 10 times harder for us to do. So just move the matrix. You have all the control. Make a copy of this. So this is going to be backup, and this is going to be the object. The backup we can turn off. And I forgot to tell you about this, but before we make this an object, go inside of the variable fracture and go inside of the object tab, and on the offset fragments, set it to something pretty small, something like 0.1. So we just have this small offset to make it visually separate. Then click C, and we can delete the matrix. So let's select every single part, and with Alt, create a remesh object. This is going to remesh every single thing. And it does a pretty good job, even without doing anything, except on stuff like this. We're going to have to tell it where the sharp corner is, so it does the job even better. So let's click on the lower part. Let's select the sharp corners. So we're going to click UN to bring up the Fong break selection, and basically just select all. It's going to have some errors, like it's going to select the things that we don't really need. So we can just manually deselect them. And let's solo this. We can turn off the remesh for now and just look at the object. So it's doing a fantastic job. So basically we selected what we needed to select. You can now select and store selection. It's gonna create a new selection. We can just delete everything else because we don't really need this, except the normals and the long break. I think the normals we can also delete. I don't think that it's gonna affect on the remesh part. So we have selected the sharp lines, the sharp edges. And with that selection, we're gonna go inside of the remesh and click on detect hard edges shading and place this selection inside of the shading. Let's click on remesh. This is gonna think a little bit more, but we have ideal edges. Same we're gonna do to this second part. So exactly the same thing. So now you can just select all of them, place them inside of backup with the copy, and we can just apply all of them. So make them editable, and now we're gonna have to bevel them. So you can just add an individual bevel to all of them, and this is gonna be 0.1 on the offset, maybe even 0.15. I think this is gonna be better. And you can probably immediately spot a new problem. And the problem is that on some of the objects, the angle threshold is not small enough to grab the corners that we need to grab. And this is a problem, but this is fixable. So we are, again, gonna have to manually select all of the hard edges, and this is going to be a little bit tougher now because we have a remeshed object. And if you Fong break selection, we're going to have a lot of stuff that we're going to have to clean manually. Store the selection and place this selection inside of the bevel. And you're gonna notice that nothing changed, and that is because our angle threshold is 40. We're gonna have to set it to 0 or something really small. You can set it to 0 since you have manually selected the basically angles. And on the subdivision, I'm gonna set it to 2. You can set it to fong break rounding, but I don't think that it's gonna do anything because we're gonna have to subdivide it. So you can place this inside of the subdivision. And as you see, it is looking really cool. Even with this kind of bad corner, it's looking really good. And with the displacement, we're gonna get rid of all of those kind of jagged lines, topology stuff, because we're gonna have details of the texture on here. So we're gonna do the same thing for the rest. It's those vertices. You can just click ME and just connect them with each other. So something like this looks really cool. And it is not interfering with the bevel now. And to fix this, strangely I just dissolved this line. You can just click MN to kind of delete the line. And if you turn on the subdivision, this kind of gets rid of this. I have some problems here, but you can polish it if you need to. Since this is an example, I'm not gonna spend hours on this, but this is what I basically did. I just sat on every single letter and I polished it until it looked pretty good. I think it's time to try and play with the animation that we're gonna do. It's really important to save the backup, and why I'm saying this is because we need the splines in order to control the spheres that we're gonna animate. So take out the spline. This is gonna be the trail. And let's also rotate this. Place it somewhere here. Let's create a sphere. And it's gonna have to be a little bit smaller than the object that we're placing it on. So let's create a hexahedron. This is gonna be really good for the collision side. And make the sphere somewhere higher. You can already create a null. I'm gonna call it spheres. And on our first, this is gonna be the first sphere, I'm gonna place a animation tag, and I believe I'm gonna set it to align to spline. We're gonna select the spline, and let's move it somewhere here. You can position this. It is important that you set the interpolation to uniform. I'm gonna say this again, and in case of the animation, it is important because you're not going to have parts that are going to go faster and some parts that are going to go slower. We're not going to see this. So the spline is going to go a little bit higher so we can adjust the Y position. I think actually you can place the spline a little bit lower, because we're going to have to make it collide in order for the sphere to spin. This is another pretty strange method that I used. I don't actually know why I used this method. There are some other methods, but I think this one is physically correct, I guess you can say that, because this is a simulation of the sphere spinning. Let's take the spline position, set it to, for example, we're gonna have to set it to something like 100. So set it to 100. And I forgot to subdivide every single thing and turn off the subdivisions. Animate the position. And we are gonna go into, for example, 25x4. We're gonna go inside of frame 100. And I'm gonna set the position to something like 62%. So let's make it linear. This is really important. Select the align to spline in your spreadsheet and make it linear so it doesn't change the speed once it's moving. Let's look at the animation. It is looking pretty cool. But we have a problem. It is not spinning at all. And there are some methods you can do this, and the first method is you can add a driver and make it spin two ways at the same time, and it's going to look like it is actually spinning. But this is, first of all, not going to be physically correct, and we're going to have problems if you're having like slides and stuff, and if it's slowing down or speeding up, we're going to have problems. And this is really hard to control once you have speed differences. And since I have an idea where the ball is rising up from the bottom and gradually increases its speed, we're gonna have to do something else. And what I came up with is a pretty cool method. We're gonna add a rigid body tag on this, and inside of forces I'm gonna set follow position to 1. I'm going to add a simulation tag we can actually connect all of this and add a simulation tag. This is going to be a collider. Turn off the liquid collisions, we don't need this. Set the collision side to both, and if we play this, it's gonna be pretty bad. Let's set the follow position strength to 3, and now it is moving. But we have other problems. The collisions look really bad, and we have a second problem because of the connect. Let's turn off wheeled. So let's look at the ball. It is really bad. The collisions quality is awful. So let's rise up the collisions quality. Let's go into the simulation and rise up the passes to 25 and extra iterations to 5. And also the substeps, set it to 35, iterations to 2, and damping to probably something like 10, I guess. It is going to be really slow, but it is already starting to spin, but it's not spinning enough. And to make it spin enough, we're going to go inside of the ball, inside of the collisions, and we're going to set friction to something really high, so 200. Same we're going to do on the collider object. I don't know why, but high friction makes the ball spin a lot. So as you see, it is spinning much better. You cannot see it inside of this laggy viewport, but if we bake the simulation, so let's cache the scene. Yeah, so besides this really jagged start, it is spinning really good. So let's clear the cache for now, and I will set the first keyframe a little bit later. Let's make it go from frame 16 and till 24. I'm gonna set the keyframe somewhere here and stretch this a little bit so that it starts slower, and we're gonna have not a really harsh start. And I'm going to animate its Y position. So this position is gonna go to frame 16, and in the start we're gonna set it to something like this. And if we look at the animation, it should be rising the ball. So let's make the forces, the follow position to 5, and let's bake the simulation. So as you see, there's a lot of experimenting here, and so yeah, this works. So this is a really easy way to make the ball spin and roll on those tunnels, and to make it look really cool. And what I showed you, I spent like maybe 10 hours on figuring out and just playing with parameters and stuff, but this works, and I really hope I saved time for somebody on this. So this is a problem. You can just play with the forces. So you can set the follow position at the start to 5, and then, for example, slow it down to 2 or even 1. So let's look at the simulation. So yeah, I kind of messed up with this. Let's move it somewhere here. So yeah, it is too fast, and you can, for example, set the overall timeline to 250 frames and just stretch up the whole thing, except the ball rise. This is gonna be probably something here. So let's cache all of this again. And this already starts to make sense. So yeah, we got the animation, but I think this is too linear, so it starts too linear. Let's look at the line to spline, and we can just delete this. And instead of doing what we did, I'm just gonna make a graph. So I'm just gonna make this something pretty linear, so probably something like this, and this is gonna go pretty smooth, probably something like this. So let's clear the cache and cache the scene again. So yeah, it is looking much better now, and this is basically all I wanted to tell you about the animation, except the platforms rising, and this is another interesting stuff, but there's not really anything complicated here. I just added a plane modifier and set the parameter to, the deformer to the object, and in the plane play with the Z or whatever you have that acts as a vertical axis. And inside of the plane I added a linear field, and this linear field rises up the platforms, and in the plane you can set this to 10 so it doesn't really go that far. Just you can play with the linear field, so from here, from the 0 to maybe even 75, because we're gonna have delay on this. So this linear field is gonna go all the way. For some reason it did not save the keyframe. And inside of this plane, I'm gonna add a delay. So it's gonna go on the top of linear field, and I'm gonna set it to, I think 50 is a good number, good amount. And as you see, it smoothens everything, and it's just a really cool thing. And let's begin with the camera. So this is gonna be my camera. This is gonna be 165 millimeters. Let's immediately create a background. This is gonna be a normal plane. Move it further away. So we have a problem here. This is what I talked about, the bevel. So we're gonna have to select the edges and deselect unneeded, unnecessary edges. Store selection and put it inside the bevel. This is my fault. We don't need the subdivisions because we're gonna have Redshift tags on this. Enable the connect and put a Redshift object on here, and click on geometry, enable it, enable the tessellation, and enable the displacement. And don't forget to select all of the bevels and put the subdivision to 2 here. So let's go inside of the render tab. I'm gonna create a new null object. This is gonna be for the lights, and I'm gonna place a infinite light. This is gonna be the key light. I'm gonna name it key. Play with the rotation. It is important to get some good shadows. I think that it looks better once the light is falling away from the right side. Maybe something like this. This looks really cool, but I kinda want some light to be on here. Just play around. I'm gonna set the intensity to 2, and don't forget to increase the softness. The shadows here are pretty soft, even if we look at the static images, and I polish them a little bit more. The shadows are pretty soft, but you can see the form of them. So 15, I think, is gonna be a pretty good amount. If you want them to be more sharp, you can set it to 10. And I think 10 actually looks a little bit better, so I'm gonna stick to that. And also don't forget to exclude the background from the light. I'm gonna call this background, and I'm gonna add a new light. This is gonna be background, and include only the background inside of it. This light is gonna be something like 10. I'm gonna place it somewhere here. Place it higher to make the gradient more smooth. And I'm gonna create a material for the background. This is gonna be something really matte and white. So the roughness is gonna be 0.7, and make sure that you don't have, burnt out parts. So keep it around, from 0.6 to 0.9. You don't really want it to go higher than 1 because it's gonna be burnt out. I'm gonna create a material for the connect. We're gonna add a color user data, and I've noticed a pretty big problem. We're gonna have to, this is my fault and I'm sorry, we're gonna have to get rid of the connect, and we're gonna place the render tag on each object. So this is gonna be for each object, because we need the color user data. Oh yeah, and I forgot to apply the material to each of our objects. So let's place not the object color, the geometry ID color, and as you see, they differ. I'm going to add a texture. This, I believe it was this texture, and you're gonna plug your color user data inside of the general UV remap. You're gonna set it to offset, and if we look at the texture, well, it's wrapped really bad right now. We're gonna place it into triplanar. And you're gonna place it inside of image X. And if we look at the texture, you're gonna see that from object to object, it differs because we have different offset. Let's plug this inside of the base color and look at the result. So it is looking pretty dark. Let's increase the key light to 3 and increase the texture brightness. Let's go inside of color, correct node, place it here, and rise up the gamma. I mean, not the gamma, the level. So 1.5, 1.4. This is gonna brighten everything up. Add this inside of a ramp to make it black and white, and plug it in displacement. This is gonna go inside of displacement. This is too much. We're gonna set it to 0.1, and don't forget to adjust the new range minimum to 0.1 also. And we can play with the texture size, so set it to 2. We can play with the displacement 0.07. Don't forget to also add a change range node. You can add also a ramp, so the texture is going to go inside of the ramp is going to go inside of the change range, and the change range is going to go inside of the roughness, so that we're going to control the roughness of this. The minimum amount, I think, is going to be 0.2, the maximum is 1, and inside of the change range you can play with the values if you adjust the ramp to make it more contrasty. And as you see, because of the triplanar, we have really hard edges here, and to get rid of them, just increase the blend amount. It's gonna make them much more smooth. Let's refresh the IPR. So yeah, it's looking much better, and as you see, it is already forming the result that we had. So let's add a reflection light. I'm gonna add an HDRI map. Inside of this, I'm going to add a I have a really cool HDRI, it's called TV Studio. It's really colorful, but we're not going to use it for the diffuse or the camera. We're going to use it only for the reflections. I'm going to create a new material. This is going to be ball, and I'm going to add this to the ball. And also don't forget to kind of rise up the segments of the ball. This is going to be the metal wall. We're going to increase the metalness and make it brighter. And the reflection is going to be at 0.05. So this HDRI map, it's really cool, but I believe I didn't use it for this. But still, it's going to be a cool as an example. And for the scratches and stuff, I used an imperfections map. You can use any imperfections map. We're basically going to do the same exact thing, ramp and a change range node. So let's look at the texture. Looking pretty cool. 0.5 to make it kind of bigger. Add this to roughness and play with the ramp. So we're gonna move the white color closer since we don't see the texture. Even closer. So I'm gonna choose the texture. I'm gonna change it to something like this. This is looking pretty cool. And we can play with the amount to 0.5, for example, and set the minimum amount to 0.07. Blending in a little bit better, and add a bump. Connect this into the bump. Connect the bump inside of the bump map. Don't be afraid of really small bump map values, because well, bump kind of works better once you have really small numbers, so 0.01 for example, or even something smaller. And I also had well, actually, let's go back inside of the material, and I'm going to decrease the minimum amount of roughness and make this white color closer. I mean the black color closer. And it is reflecting more, but we have too much displacement. 0.04 is going to do the job. Yes, it is looking better. And let's add a new light source. I'm going to add a light source from the bottom. This is going to be bottom. This is basically going to go from the bottom, and this is going to light up those parts. And let's make it smaller. So I'm going to make the intensity to 20, and I'm going to make the spread to 0.2, so it's making a more consistent reflection. So I used something like this on most of the letters, and you can make it a little bit hotter, so just like 5,000. Well, 5,000, I think it's looking more natural, just, you know, compared to the right. And overall, yeah, I also used a pretty cool thing. I used Max and Noise. I had a Voronoi, and I used a really small input, so something like 1 even, and I played with the output, so I made the low clip really dark, and I plugged this inside of the metalness. So I plugged this inside of bass and metalness, and if I turn this off, we're gonna see those little metal chips, metal flakes. To make it even better, you can move this a little bit further away and basically get a mix color node, and you can, you know, have 2 colors, and you can plug this max and noise into the mix amount. You're gonna have white on the flakes, but to make them interact with roughness, you're gonna set this to black to make it glossy as possible. And if we look at this, this is gonna make the flakes even more reflective. And even here you're gonna see the flakes, and you know, it's all procedural. You can adjust anything that you want. So basically, this is all. I also had a gobo light. You can add a area light. I'm gonna call this gobo. So I'm gonna add a gobo light. I'm gonna add a plane. This gobo light is gonna stay where it is. The plane is gonna go inside of it. I'm gonna call this gobo. And the thing that the plane does is, so let's place this where the gobo is, make it bigger and move it a little bit to the bottom. I'm gonna turn this off from the viewport, and I'm also gonna add a render tag on it and turn on the visibility override and turn off the primary ray visibility. So turn this on, and the gobo light is going to be at a spread of 0.1 for the start. I'm gonna add a new material. This is gonna be gobo, and this is gonna go onto the plane. We're gonna add a texture. I have some gobo textures. I use mostly this one. This is gonna go inside of bump, the opacity, and I'm gonna add a ramp. So yeah, make the intensity smaller, so 15, and let's change the nuts position. Maybe make the plane smaller, and you know, the smaller the plane is, you can adjust the plane's position to adjust the gobo texture. You can make the exposure -5 and then adjust it manually. So, you know, like 15. So this is what brings the atmosphere to the scene. You're gonna see that some of your parts of the scene are getting burnt out. This is fixable. You just have to play around a lot. So you see, you can make the light a little bit hotter. So 450. I decided to make it as simple as possible, but as you see, there's a lot of stuff you can do. And in the Redshift dome light, you can increase a little bit the diffuse to 0.2 to make it more natural. So this looks a little bit more natural. You get rid of this burn out. And this is actually from the key light coming, so I'm gonna set it to 2. And we immediately got rid of the burn. Yeah, but we have some dark stuff here, and you just have to play around and adjust stuff. So yeah, this is basically it. I really hope that I explained everything that I actually wanted to explain you. Have a nice day and goodbye.